Welcome, friends. Such a joy to have these satsangs together. And this topic tonight is one that I really enjoy because as I was growing up, I realized that my nature was more simple, it was more childlike, it was more devotional, it was more heart quality. And when we went to our church, we went every week. My mother and father would take us, and we prayed very simply. But there was deep love and devotion and open-heartedness and very sincere prayers. And I always felt God was close then. And you could say, our guru, though no one in that church would have ever dared say it, but our guru was really Jesus. And I felt very close to him, and I felt very close to God. And then after some time, I lost that closeness as I grew up, and I went, away to school and then college, and I got more in my mind, and I realized that I had lost something very deep and very sweet in my life. And so I started seeking again and looking for answers, and I came across transcendental meditation, and I began to practice that. I did some Buddhist chanting at first, and I was shopping around. I did TM for maybe a year or maybe a little bit longer, but it lacked something for me personally, and that's what I had when I was a child, that sweetness in the heart and openness and love. It was just very technical, you could say, a mantra. And then soon after, by God's grace and Guru's grace, I met Master again, not in the body, but inwardly in my heart and soul. What a relief, because it was so, here again was the sweetness that I had missed for so long. His chants were so devotional, and to hear his voice, you could feel he was really talking to God. He was singing to God, and he had God contact. And from coming onto Master's path and doing all the various things, and deep prayers and devotional practices and the chanting and singing and all, I regained what I had lost, and not only regained it, that door had been cracked open when I was a little girl, but it opened more and more and more as I became Master's disciple and as I was on his path. And I realized that was something it was a treasure that you can't get everywhere and that many people don't have. And I think for those of us who are following this path, we have to really hold that near and dear. Because perception of God, the experience of God, even feeling like we did just now, even a little bit of peace or joy or love or sweetness, that's meaning that God is near. Really, we've come closer to God. God is always near, but we tend to be busy or preoccupied or not have the time for one reason or another. But what Guruji brought was a direct contact, the experience of the divine, and he showed that throughout his life as a little boy when he was Mukunda. He was such a sweet story. He wrote a letter to God when, I don't know what exact age, 5 or 6 or something, and he wrote it to God. I think it said in heaven, and that was the full address. It was something as simple as that, and he wrote something like, please respond, I want to hear from you, something very simple. And every day that passed by, the postman would come, and little Mukunda would go and he said, "Did a letter come from me?" And for me, and of course we said, "No, no letter for you." And that went on for many days, and little Mukunda got very worried and kind of upset that God didn't respond. And so once he was praying, and he said, I've written you this letter and you didn't respond. I don't know why aren't you talking to me?" And suddenly, Divine Mother, as light, came to him and wrote him in letters of light of her love for him. And it's a very sweet story. He also, one time, he was with one of his sisters, and they were flying kites, and he was trying to tell his sister of whatever he wanted, that the Divine Mother would give it to him. Now, Divine Mother that's the term that Master used for God. He said God, Mother, is closer than the Father aspect of God. The Father aspect is reasonable, rational. The Mother, she just loves you, no matter what, naughty or good. Master said to pray, "I am thy child." And so they were flying kites, and Mukunda said, "Well, if I ask the Divine Mother to give me these kites, they'll come right to me." And Sister said, "No, that's not going to happen." And he said, "You just watch." And then there the kites started floating over closer and closer to them, and then they hooked onto a tree right near him. And he just was, I think he was always in communion and talking with the Divine Mother. Master, he was so open, and so even, of course he was an avatar from birth, but he was always in a constant self-offering, surrender, a love affair, really, with the Divine Mother. Guruji's mother passed away, his physical mother passed away when he was, I think he was 12, something like that, and he was just completely devastated. He just couldn't stop crying. He couldn't believe that his mother passed away. And he kept crying and praying and alternating between the two for some time. And then one day, he had a vision of the Divine Mother. And she came to him in such a beautiful form. And she said, "It was I who have loved you through all the mothers you've ever had. It was I who was behind your mother. And it is I who will ever be with you." And it was such a satisfying, fulfilling experience for Master that he could see his mother through the Divine Mother. And for all of us in every experience, if we could see her behind the love of our friends or our parents or relatives or our children, we will feel that it's such a fulfilling love, that really human love can't get anywhere near that. But as we meditate and pray and chant and call to the Divine Mother with openness, childlikeness, then she comes and there's nothing quite like it. Even if you just had a little taste of it, it's so sweet and nothing can compare. One day little Mukunda was away from the home, and his parents were looking everywhere for him, and I guess he would just go off on his own. He was just so in love with Divine Mother. Kali particularly was the image that he worshipped. And so they finally found him in the temple, their temple, where they would go and worship, and he was sitting there just completely immersed. And I think it took them a little while to rouse him, because he was just so full of love and devotion for God. And then they finally were able to get him and take him home. But this is the childlikeness and the sweetness that we have to have Yoganandaji said that God is the nearest of the near and dearest of the dear. And you can have the experience of feeling sweetness, or feeling, seeing light, or hearing the chakra sounds, or the Om sounds, or having a vision of God, or sometimes you're chanting and you're just, tears are just rolling down your face. I remember a time in Italy when I was sharing a wall with Swami Kritanandaji. He was on the other side in another apartment, and I was on the opposite side. And every night I would hear, it was late in the night too, and I'd already be asleep, and every night without fail I would hear Swamiji chanting. And this was in the 80s, mid-80s to late 80s, and he was chanting so sweetly. Of course I would get up immediately and I'd start to meditate, and just to hear him chant, he was crying most of the time. His heart was so soft, and he could barely get the words out. And he would sing Door of My Heart, or one of the master's chants. It's just so sweetly. I'll never forget how he talked to God, and just like a little child. How he sang is what I'm saying. How he talked to God through the chant, just like a little child. And I bet he was going into very deep states in his meditation. And so this is how we have to be when we chant, pray. We should keep pictures around of the masters, or picture of Master's mother as a form of the Divine Mother, or images of God that make us feel more connected, more open, that open the heart and create longing and thirst. That has to be there to draw God. When Swamiji first came to Master, he was very intellectual, and Master said to him right from the beginning, well, you must get devotion. And Swamiji, I think he kind of understood that, but he didn't completely. So Master took him one day into his sitting room, and he had one of the nuns bring in a paper bag, and he had Swamiji sit down, and then they switched off the lights, and then Master, the bag was, crinkling everything. He pulled something out of the bag, and Swamiji was brand new there. He was 22 years old. He was very bright, very intellectual, and Master pulled this little toy pistol out of the bag, and he shot up in the air some sparks, and then he turns on the lights, and he says, how did you like that, Walter? And that's what he called Swamiji. And Swamiji didn't know what to think. He always thought a great master was just very maybe pompous and strict and a disciplinarian only, and Master was just playing with him. And then he had something else in the bag. He pulled it out, and it was he shot this up in the air too, and it was a little toy parachute, and it just came down slowly, and they all watched it come down. And then he looked at Swamiji and he said, do you like these, Walter? How do you like them? And Swamiji didn't know what to say. He said, I guess they're all right, sir. And then Master looked very deeply into his heart and soul, and he said the words of Jesus Christ, suffer the little children, meaning allow the little children to come unto me, for of such is the kingdom of God. Meaning you must open your heart to experience God. You can read, you can talk, you can do all kinds of yoga postures, you can do many meditation practices, you can serve, but until you're open, God watches the heart, and can only come in when the soul is open, when you're ready, when you're ripe. A man came to Yoganandaji and he had a list of questions and he came for an interview. And the first question he asked, Master just looked at him and he just said, love God. And the man, he thought, well, he doesn't understand. So he goes to the next question and he asks that question. And Master just looked at him and he said, love God. And he doesn't understand. He goes to the next question. Master finally looks at him and he says very strongly to love God. And he gets up and he walks out of the room because he realized that this man would never be open to the vibrations of God until he could get out of his mind. It's not that you need to become dumb, but you need to balance yourself open. What Swamiji said, that he got a harmonium, he began to chant. Master told him to get devotion. He began to chant, learn the chants, and also he prayed for devotion to God, to enter his heart as devotion. These are some of the things we can do. Swami Sri Yukteswarji was a Jnana yogi, and he said in his book, The Holy Science, that you can't take even one step on the spiritual path without love for God. And that love comes from cultivation of all the things that I've mentioned. And you can also pray to the gurus to bless you and to come to you in that way. Kriyanandaji asked Master once, allow me or help me or bless me to love you as you love me. And Guruji's answer was very sweet. He said, how can the little cup hold the ocean of God's love? A master has that whole ocean. We have a little cup. And what he was saying was you have to expand your heart. There was an image that actually I saw in Italy of Saint Teresa of Avila in one of the churches there, where there's an angel who has a spear and is putting the spear in her heart. And that's, she talks about that experience actually in some of her writings, that there was so much pain and then so much joy. Now what would the pain be? The pain would be trying to clear all the clutter away from the heart. The joy would be what comes after that clutter is gone, as in that beautiful chant of Guruji's, door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. That all the things, the desires, attachments, various things that clutter the heart, we have to remove them through various practices that we do. Of course, I mentioned many of them already, but as well, could be from affirmations and good satsang, seva, various things. But mainly having the thought that I want to have the experience of God. And it reminds me of that beautiful story of Sabari, who was in the forest and with other, you could say yogis or ascetics, who were practicing various techniques, and they were preparing for Rama's arrival. And she didn't know most of that. I mean, she was just very open and simple and humble, receptive. She was just surrendering. She was giving herself, offering herself to God. And her practice was just to sweep the paths, just to make them, to prepare them, to clean them for Rama's arrival. Now, of course, that means she was sweeping the debris from her heart. She was everything that was in the way of her love for Rama, for the Lord. She was dissolving those, releasing them, letting them go. That's what that story really means. And so for all of us, that desires that we have, they hold us back from the vision of God, from the experience of God. Master said when he found God, he asked Divine Mother, he said, I prayed for so long. Why didn't you come? And she said to him, there were still some more desires. And those desires are the attachments, things that we want to have, things that we feel we need to do. Could be fame, could be fortune, name, various things that we want to have. But if we just say, what I do in my life is say, if this is right with you, Divine Mother, I'll have it. If not, I don't want it. And our life is seemingly having one toy after another. And it's like the naughty baby when it's crying for the mother and she comes over near the child, but she gives a toy. And the baby's fine for a while, and then he realizes he's been tricked, and he cries again for the mother. And she comes again, okay, here's another toy. This is how we are. She keeps giving toys, and we're fine for a while. And then we realize something's not quite right. The baby cries again for the mother, and then she comes in, she gives another toy, bigger and better. These are all the things, bigger job, bigger house, a car, whatever. All the toys, and she gives it, and then finally the child keeps crying. The mother comes, gives the toy, and he just keeps crying and saying, even if he can't talk, he's saying, I want my mother. I don't want any more toys. And this is how the devotee should be, that whatever comes, just push it to the side. Maybe these things, some of them may help you in your life, but probably a lot of them don't. And just say what I really want. I'm looking behind the gift to the giver. Swamiji he told such a beautiful story that he had just finished the Raja Yoga lessons, and he wanted to go out and celebrate with Divine Mother. And he said that clearly, that he didn't go with anybody else, he went by himself, and he went to celebrate. It was 600 pages of writing in these lessons. Well, that's how long the Raja Yoga lessons are now. And so he went, and I don't think he had a whole lot of money to afford this little trip with Divine Mother, but he wanted to go with her. So he went, and he went to Carmel. And those of you from the United States, particularly California, you might know of Carmel. It's very beautiful by the ocean. And he went to another area before that. And then afterwards, he didn't find quite the right place that he wanted, because he was celebrating. So he went and he found a room in Carmel at a hotel. He found a place there, and he went, and he talked to the manager, and then afterwards he pulled out his wallet to pay, and the manager said, because Swamiji thought, I'm going to pay now because I want to make sure I have the money to pay for my room, so he must not have had a whole lot of money. And so the man, he pulls his wallet out, he's starting to pay him, and the man says, no, don't pay me. And Swamiji says, well, I want to pay you now. And he says, no, don't pay me at all. And Swamiji says, well, what do you mean don't pay you at all? He says, why not? And I want to pay you. He says, no, don't pay me. He says, well, why? He says, well, I don't know. I just like you. I mean, how many times has that happened to you? I just like you. And so he didn't pay, and because he was going with Divine Mother. Then he goes for his lunch, and he's sitting, he talks a little bit with the manager there, and he's talked to everybody. And it was just such an open channel for God wherever he went. So he was talking, and then when it came time to pay for his meal, the owner, the manager, didn't let him pay for his meal. And he said, well, why? He says, well, I don't know. Because he was doing it with God. He was doing it for God. He was doing it as a child of God. And he was open. to Divine Mother, taking him by the hand and guiding him, going with them on a vacation. It's such a nice thing to do. I've done that as well, and wonderful things always seem to happen during those trips. But one final very sweet story I'll share about Guruji. He was traveling on the coast of California, and there was a place that he always would stop to get some sweets, some cookies, shortbread cookies they're called, and he would enjoy these, and so he went there and he sent one of the nuns into the little shop, and she came back and she said, "Well, Master, they don't have any more." And he said, "Really?" And she said, "No, they don't have any more." So Master he in that very moment, I don't know if he looked up or what he did, but I got out of the car, but he just said, "Divine Mother, what happened?" I mean, this is the sweetest way to approach God. What happened? Like, have I done something wrong, or what happened? And then immediately there was a shaft of light that came over that little shop, and the lady ran out, and she had a bag of the cookies, the shortbread cookies, and she said, "Oh, I'll give you these. I'll give you this batch. I'll make more for the other person. I was holding them for him, but you please take these. I want you to have them." Your life becomes so sweet when you can become more childlike and know that God loves you, and that's the closest relationship you can ever have. And to open yourself to the blessings. I think Divine Mother's just pouring love and her blessings and showering us with her gifts. But we're so busy doing other things, we don't feel her. After you meditate, before you meditate as well, talk to her and just say whatever's on your heart. If there's some difficulty, give it to God in the form of the Mother. She's so sweet and she just loves you. And as you meditate, feel I'm meditating with my Divine Mother. She's sitting with me. She's helping me meditate more deeply. Sometimes you're sitting there and there's tears just rolling down your face. When you chant, sometimes you just can chant for hours. The same chant. Master had visions of the Divine Mother, and once at a Christmas meditation, yes, that's when it was, he saw her, and he was in ecstasy, and he just was talking to her, and he said, "Oh, you're so beautiful, you're so beautiful." And then she started to go, and he says, "No, please, don't go, don't go." And she was leaving, and he said, "What do you mean? The material desires of these people are sending you away. Please, Mother, don't go." It's just so sweet. And we know why she goes away, because our minds are on other things. So put your mind and heart and soul on God and give your love as a child. You don't have to pray, have any big words, or Master said don't pray like you're a cold cucumber. He said pray with all the fervor of your heart and knowing with full faith that she hears you and that she will respond. May not be right away, but I've seen in my life, I've never seen it fail, that when I talk to the Divine Mother and Master, something always came. So let us be more open, more soft, more childlike. I may have told this story before, but I'll close with this, that we have this wonderful tree out in the front garden here, a grapefruit tree. And the grapefruits are, right now they're green, and they're this big, and they started growing, months back. And the tree is just sort of laden down with these grapefruits, and And I keep asking the gardener, well, when are they going to be ready? And because they look like they're ready now, but they're still very green, but they're big. But seemingly every week they get bigger and bigger. And he keeps saying to me every time I ask him when they're going to be ready, he says, Madam, it takes time. But I know at a certain point they're going to be ripe. And when a fruit is ripe, it's just a little bit of a tug. Sometimes you don't need a tug, they just fall off the tree. And this is how the devotee should be. Just so ripe that God can come right in your heart and bless you